Today on Beardo and Weirdo, we're talking about that final show for Ozzy and Black Sabbath. And we're talking to Lzzy Hale from Halestorm, Dave Ellefson from Megadeth and beyond. And they are sharing their personal stories about how they got there.
Taking you back to the beginning here on Beardo and Weirdo. There we go. Look at you. God bless technology. And God bless Lzzy Hale.
Oh, you're so sweet. How are you doing, my friend?
I am wonderful. Yeah, we are here for a little bit of a break in Vegas, and we started this podcast back in January. It's been a whole lot of fun. Have you met Craig Gass before?
Craig, hi. How you doing, darling? We might have met in passing at some point. But
We, you know what, Lzzy just did the thing you said you do. You go, just to be safe, you're always like, hey, good.
We may have.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We've had conversations about how people take it really personally when you say, hey, nice to meet you. And they go, I met you before.
I met you like 6 times.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you know
better.
what?
Be better. Sorry.
Over the years, Lzzy and her band, I've never met them. And over the years, I keep hearing like Josh Bernstein, even like radio buddies of mine, like a buddy of mine, Bob Lester up in Anchorage, who you're going to meet soon. They would always be like, dude, that band is cool as shit. And I always would think like, I want to hang out with cool as shit people.
Yep.
Like,
see, I've had the opportunity to hang out with Lzzy. We did festivals way back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, we got to hang out and chat, and just lovely human being. And I want to start off this episode to let you know something about you. You are one of 2 people that has ever stopped me in my tracks vocally. One of them, Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. Didn't know anything about Soundgarden. I was at a show with Cincinnati and Bogarts. I went there to see COC and Danzig, and Soundgarden was in the middle. I was talking to a girl during Soundgarden. His voice started. I go, hold on a minute. And sat transfixed for the next 45 minutes. The first time I heard your voice live was at the Hard Rock Pool in Las Vegas when you were doing a cover with your friend Corey Taylor.
mm-hmm.
And I was on my way out the door, and then you started singing. I was like, what is that? My God. Stopped me in my tracks, turned around, and then I got to meet you shortly thereafter on one of the shows that we did. So thank you very, very much for everything. This is wonderful. Really, really appreciate you.
My pleasure, man. What a beautiful time. And it's just it's amazing to know you and to have, walked our paths side by side together and in parallel universes and all of that.
Absolutely. So. On several aspects. So congratulations on that as well. Craig walks that same path as us as well. So that's been one of the things that's bonded us as well.
No way, really?
Yeah? Oh, yeah.
Oh, that is so cool. Well, listen, I just have so many questions. First of all, when did you get the call that you're going to be a part of this Ozzy final show?
Oh my gosh, it was months and months ago. And, the email was vague. They're like, okay, super secret, would you do this show with Black Sabbath? I'm like, well, yes, absolutely. And then you realize what it is and what it obviously became. And I don't know. I just didn't think it was real. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
I'm waiting for someone to pinch me and be like, yeah, by the way, you've been punked, so.
So there was actually a time between, hey, super secret show, and then this is going to be the final performance.
Yes.
So when did you get word? Was it during a press release that you find out, oh shit, this is Ozzy's final show?
Yeah, we ended up getting prepped shortly before the announcement. They're like, by the way, this is actually the gravity of the situation.
Oh my gosh.
And dude, there's so many feelings, when we were kids, all we did, we grew up watching Ozzy and be like, how does he do that? There's this hunger and fire in his eyes. And then obviously with Black Sabbath, how many of us wouldn't be here without them? So just to be a part of it is we're so grateful, and what an honor.
Yeah, the argument can be made that we would be here doing some sort of music were it not for Black Sabbath. But they are in the DNA of every single one of us that's out here doing it today. That's an amazing feat, an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, and when you find out about it and you find out who's going to be involved, is there anyone left that you haven't met that was going to be there that you're like, I finally get to meet that person?
Honestly, there's been so many ticks off the bucket list. Even just, the day before in rehearsals, and I got to meet Steven Tyler, and obviously getting to share the stage with Jakey Lee. And
Oh, love it.
It's like all of these monumental people, and then getting to kind of go through the journey with Tom Morello, who what a man, what a myth, what a legend. He was herding cats,
Oh,
like
yeah.
he was in charge. He was the musical director for the entire thing.
Yeah,
So I mean, throughout the process of just like, oh, by the way, this is what's going to happen. Actually, we don't know what's going to happen. Well, now we know what's happening. Just follow me, And it
absolutely.
was just, it was amazing.
So even in the rehearsals, it was like did you feel it when you landed in Birmingham? Did you feel like was it like in the ether? Was it at the airport, in the city?
It was in the air. It was like we were talking about this like the whole plane ride home yesterday about how we've never had an experience like this where it's not only the
Mhm.
entire city and the entire world watching, but the entire crowd. And then you're walking, amongst these rock gods, and everyone has the same feeling. There's no head is higher. Everybody has this like giddy, almost childlike, we can't believe this is happening. We can't believe we're here. We're so honored to be here. It was just magical. It was just this, we were all there for the right reasons, for the same reasons, and that's something that will never happen again. It's like we've played so many festivals, and we've played in front of so many crowds with so many bands, and there is that idea that is heavy metal. Heavy metal is a sanctuary for all of us. It is our church, for the downtrodden, the misunderstood, the weirdos. Black Sabbath helped carve the path for that. Said, no, own your weird, double
Yep.
down on it,
Oh yeah,
you know,
Mhm.
be like Ozzy,
yeah.
just
There's a new
do the
shirt right
thing,
there. Be like Ozzy.
do it, and then ask for forgiveness later,
Mhm.
but it's just to be there, but even like at all of the past festivals and everything, everyone kind of has like, okay, we have our show and then we have our camaraderie, but this was a whole different beast. It was just, oh, everyone, you could feel the energy, and it was all just, this is crazy, and this will
Absolutely.
never happen again, in the same way. It was magic to be a part of.
The only thing I can liken it to from my own personal experience is having played with Metallica around the world ourselves. I mean, it is a full Metallica weekend,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that's just like a normal Metallica show. This is, yeah. And you're just like, I can't imagine having Metallica at that show too, and it being Black Sabbath's last show,
Mm.
Ozzy's last show with Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Just, it's mind blowing to me.
Guns N' Roses and Metallica
Oh.
opening for Black Sabbath. Yeah.
Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And that was the wonderful thing to see too, because with everybody, and everybody's demeanor on stage was the same. It wasn't about like, even when Metallica came on, he's like, dude, this isn't about Metallica. We wouldn't be here without Black
Yeah.
Sabbath. And
So
so
incredible.
everybody was just kind of passing the torch on, and that kept getting brighter and brighter as the night went on. And then as soon as Ozzy, you know, appeared on stage on that throne and
Oh,
started singing. I mean, we all wept. I was surrounded by everyone, and we were all just
mhm.
crying. Just being able to see this, and that man. I mean, whatever chains bind him in this mortal world. I mean, he was hungry. He was just he wanted to get out of that
Oh
chair,
yeah.
Ah,
and then he went into Mama, I'm Coming Home,
ugh.
and it broke everybody's hearts, and it was just like, oh, this is the guy.
Yeah.
This is the man. This is why we're here. And then when Tony and Geezer and Bill and everybody joined him, and it was just I don't, there are no words to describe, other than you can feel it in your bones, in your lineage, and you get flooded by all of these feelings of being a teenager, and when these songs first hit you, and when these guys came into your life and showed you this other way, other than because we're all faced with this like choice of, you can either choose normalcy and safety, or whatever,
Mhm.
Yes.
the illusion of
Yes.
rules.
Yes.
And these guys were like, there are no actual rules.
Yeah.
And and let's go. And the wonderful thing about Black Sabbath too is that I remember, above everybody else, they were always these guys that said, basically, were exuding from stage, we're doing all of this cool shit, and you are more than welcome to be a part of our family, but we don't need any of you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they were never advertising at us. They were never trying to cram anything down anyone's throats. They're like, no, we're doing this,
Mhm.
you know,
Attraction
and
versus
come
promotion.
join us.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's
That-
just amazing.
That's funny because when I've seen interviews with you, you seem to be as obsessed with music as I am about stand-up comedy. And there are moments in my life where I have a very important show. It's just something that has more gravity to it. And I walk out, before I walk out on stage, I go, holy shit, I'm not even funny. It just hits me before I walk out on stage. Like, I don't have anything. Like, I just start I'm so much better performing a show and then finding out afterwards that somebody I love was in the audience than I am finding out someone's in the audience because I go, oh my God, what am I going to do? It's like I don't even remember doing stand-up anymore.
Yeah.
I go out, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing. And I wonder if you, a woman who's been on arena stages for decades, overthought walking out on stage for this very short performance.
It's, you know, and that's the crazy thing about all of us having these short sets, right? Because you're cramming your entire history,
Mhm.
the energy that you would be putting into like a 3-hour show into 15 minutes. And then knowing everybody is watching and all of your idols are there. You know, it was very much a blackout situation for me, the set. And it was very much afterward being like, did we do good? Like, did it
Yeah.
happen?
Right.
What went
Pinch
down?
me, please.
But that never really goes away, and that's the beauty of stand-up comedy, you know, and with live sets as well, because it's like, you know, you're on the roller coaster ride, it's going, you can't get off, you know, it's
Yep.
like you're in the room now, it's up to you, and you almost have to just kind of let it take you wherever it's going to take you because you have no choice in the matter,
Right.
you know, and I always kind of say to myself, I'm like, who am I to say how this is going to go? You know, I've prepared myself. I'm here for a reason. I've been asked. I'm honored to be here.
Mhm.
And then let it just take me. My bass player always says something really funny to me. Like whenever these situations comes up, he's like, it's okay. We're all gonna jump off the cliff together. And I packed your parachute, I think.
Oh.
You know, it's like that kind of thing.
Oh,
Let's hear it for the
man.
bass players
Let's
holding it
jump off the
down.
cliff
We got
together,
you.
you know.
I wish I had a bass player or anyone on stage with me sometimes. I wish there was someone for those bad shows to be able to like, all right,
Hey,
well,
man.
we suck together, whatever.
Instead, you got this bass player. They're like, ha, ha,
Yeah,
ha.
yeah.
I saw that.
Everyone's got a bass player in their life, really and
Yeah.
truly.
I know that this all the gravity you're looking out at how crazy this is, but was there any one moment, because you're getting feedback from these legends, was there any one person that walked up to you that you went, are you kidding me, that wanted to compliment you about your set?
There was Steven Tyler,
Oh.
Wow.
when we were in rehearsals, and you know, we got to meet for the first time. We've you know, hung out in similar circles, but like the two of us have never actually met. And he took my sunglasses because I had these purple sunglasses. You know, he's like, "What are those?" And then he's like, "Oh, you're a singer. Give me some mojo." And then Tom Morello pulls me out because on stage before we were even about to do a song, because he's like, "I need a singer," because nobody in rehearsals could hear the singers in the monitors. So Tom's like, "We're just gonna go in the key of A and just scat some stuff, just do stuff." You know, it's like, "Okay, key of A, go." And so I go out on the mic and I'm just like, I don't know, I'm making stuff up and I'm doing my wailing thing and the thing I do. And then Steven's like, wow, she's really good. I'm like, oh
Oh,
my God.
that
Like,
rules.
you know, it's one of those things, you know, and then just you know, see and talk with Tony Iommi again after so many years. We ended up opening up for Heaven and Hell in 2009, which ended up being Ronnie James Dio's last show. And so, you know, there was talks of us going out on tour with them and everything. He's like, oh, and then, you know, Ronnie passed and everything kind of fell apart. And so, you know, at the very end of it all, this is the end of the night. I was talking with Tony Iommi. He's like, we'll see each other again. I know we will. I'm like,
Oh.
okay. Yeah, buddy. I don't know. They're just like so many of those little moments. And then getting to talk with Billy Corgan, who's just been such a love and a supporter of us, and what an amazing dude throughout our journey. And getting to talk with Tobias from Ghost and being like, dude, can you believe this is real?
Yeah.
And then you see Youngblood again. What a star that guy
Yeah,
is. Oh goodness
absolutely.
gracious. And what a great heart. So there was just so many of that. And then at the after party, there was a funny moment with Axl Rose. Okay, so another singer who I've done stuff with Slash and with Duff and with everybody, and done the Kings of Chaos with Matt, and never actually. So I'm like, hey, I'm Lzzy Hale from Halestorm. He's like, oh yeah, and then I'm like, you mind if we get a picture? And like, I turn around and like, there's all these cameras. He's like, you come with a lot of cameras. I'm like, so do you, man. I don't know.
Absolutely.
We're doing the thing.
You,
So just so many surreal moments.
you know
It
what's
was just
crazy about
amazing.
this? I'm taking in the whole all of what Lizzie's doing right now. She's glowing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's so crazy because I think it's so important that people hear this, that I've seen interviews where Lzzy has said that she suffered from imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
So I think it's so important to hear how human of an experience it is.
Yeah, with that superhuman voice of hers too.
To feel like you're less than, even though she has what she has,
Mhm.
and she still leans in and has managed to break through to all these experiences, but she's just like all of us,
Oh yeah.
suffers from an insecurity. And how do you get out of that? How do you get, when you feel that imposter syndrome, what's helped you when your own brain is working against you? How do you, what have you gotten any tools from how to work with
There's
it?
there's a moment I will get to in a second, but I think it's important to say that none of us get into music because we feel like we have it. We get into music because we're reaching for something, because we're
Mm.
hoping to touch the magic in some way and somehow be a part of something bigger than ourselves. So, it's something, I didn't get into this for attention. I call myself a reformed introvert because very shy child. My mom has a story. She tells everybody about how, I guess in kindergarten they had the firefighters come to the classroom, and they were having us do like fire drill things, and hey, if you're like locked in a closet or if you're somewhere, you need to yell out for the firemen. And apparently I wouldn't yell, so they had to call my mom and like explain to my mom that I would not be loud.
Oh my,
For the
Lzzy Hale would not be
Yes.
loud.
which is funny because then my mom's like, well, it's funny how now you're
Yeah.
like yell for a living.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, before the world gets to you, before school and before you're trying to fit in somewhere, when you are, before you kind of find your or I should say, I guess I was around 10 years old. My mom showed me this home video. She's got all these VHS tapes of like me just around the house, and we're in the living room, and my dad's at the piano, doing these kind of like Beatle-esque chords, and I'm just making up songs.
Mm.
And I looked at myself in my 10-year-old face, and I'm like, oh my God, girl, you always had it. Like my pitch was great.
Yep.
Like for a 10-year-old, I'm like so proud of my younger self. And so in a way that helps me every time to
Mhm.
just be like, hey, there was something to it, and whether I believed it or not, or it took me 4 decades to get back to that young self again.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I had to go that path. And I think that in a large part of it for me, if I hadn't gotten to know my lowest lows, I would never be able to appreciate my highest highs, and be able to just stand here and be like, oh my gosh, we just got off a tour with Maiden. We just did the last ever Black Sabbath show. I just got to meet Steven Tyler. Like, you're able to really soak it in today, like in this moment. Talking with you guys, talking with my friends, who have, watched me grow in this business, and really be able to appreciate it if I hadn't known that and if I hadn't experienced that. And what an amazing thing though, the human element and the human will is, because no matter how fearful I got or how many doubts float around, or how many dark clouds kind of, were covering me at any moment in time, the music was still able to come through. And whatever that original star, that original magic, again, before the world got to us, before we started reaching for something, we're all meant to be here. And I feel like we talk about music choosing you, not the other way around.
Mhm.
Whereas it calls to you in a way, because we could have done all of this in a career sense in a much easier way. There's no guarantee of success here. You could die doing it. There's there's no real reason why we consciously, in a logical sense, should have chosen this. So the fact that we're here and we live to tell the tale, and we are able to say, I am a lifer in this business. I will be here. And watching Black Sabbath, and watching those men get up there and play their hearts out with smiles on their
Mm.
faces, and just, that's the goal, and that's like, no, we all saw the path. We're like, wait, when I'm 70, you're still going to see me up there doing my
Oh, yeah.
thing.
Which, by the way, do you, after having that experience, have you thought about, man, if there's an end goal, if there's does that make you think about a day and how that would look if you wanted to say, we would do one performance, it would look like this to say goodbye?
I think that's all going to come together. It's all fragmented into many different pieces
Mm.
over with many different feelings. And but we all kind of said to each other, at the end of it, said, this is the end of a chapter, in all of our lives, but it's also the great beginning of a whole other one. And who's to say what's possible and what's not? I mean, we're talking, like, we've been the same four members for over 22 years now.
Insane, by the way.
And
Absolutely
my
insane.
We haven't even done
my
that for a
bro-
year.
Yeah.
right, my brother and I are going to be celebrating our 28th Halestorm anniversary
Oh.
on August 9th, the day after our album comes out.
Yes.
And these are impossible dreams that we would have never thought would have ever come true. Like,
Right.
how many firsts, how many more things can we add on to the bucket list, that we've crossed so many things off. You never run out of dreams. And so it feels like this kind of rejuvenation for the four of us personally,
Yeah.
whereas, okay, now what's next? Let's keep going, and let's put one foot in front of the other. Let's do the next right thing,
Right.
whatever that is.
Yep.
And know we're in it for the right reasons.
And before we go on to what's next, let's just take a moment just to think about this. You from small town Pennsylvania, me from small town Kentucky,
Oh yeah.
Craig, small town Washington over here, correct?
Woo.
I'm from New York.
Well, I mean, yes. Yeah.
Still a small town.
I'm a Mariners fan,
Yeah.
but I'm from
I'm
New
trying
York.
to bring you down here with the normal.
Oh, yeah. Small,
Yes.
let's
Yes,
go.
I'm trying. I set it up for him. He's wearing a Mariners hat. That's why he missed that easy lob right there. But just to have come from such small beginnings, the humility that we have there, and now experiencing these things today. Black Sabbath is one of those things too. How giddy all three of us are sitting here just talking about music as fans, as a collective community. Black Sabbath is powerful. And you talked about this impossible dream, this impossible goal. We've made it the possible.
It's crazy. It's super crazy. I was talking to my dad, because my dad sent me a shot of, like, I guess, I'm on the front of the UK paper today, like, with everybody.
Wow.
And we were talking about, like, the beginnings of, listening to War Pigs when we were kids. And then, we covered Perry Mason when we were in bars in Pennsylvania. We did the thing. And he's like, could you have ever thought? I'm like, no, absolutely not, Dad. But thank you so much for introducing me to this music, and for allowing me to kind of get swept up in the channel of it, because look at us here. I mean, hey, Chris, I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of us. I really am.
You know what?
Of everything that we've all collectively done, and how much we've overcome to get here. And like you said, humble beginnings. Like my dad was a third shift mechanic. It's like we didn't have a rich uncle in the
No way.
business. We didn't even know how to play our instruments at first. We're like,
Yeah.
And
how do we do this?
We have the evidence of the journey you've been on because you sent us some of your pictures from the experience that you had. We're going through them right now. There's a picture of you with Jake.
Kudos to Joe
Also,
for these shots too.
Casserole Jason Momoa in the background.
Oh my God!
I was waiting to bring that one up there. Yeah,
he was very tall, by the way. Very tall.
That's funny. Next photo. Let's go through them.
Jakey Lee also lives here in Las Vegas, and that's another thing.
Oh my God!
Nuno
and Steven. Oh my God!
What a big! He's wearing my glasses. That's what I was.
Oh, that rules. There's the picture.
He's like, let me take your glasses.
Yeah. Oh my God!
I didn't think he was going to give them back, but he did.
Oh, there you go. Would you let him have them?
I would have absolutely.
Keep skipping through, Alex. And we have the Billy Corgan and Tobias.
Oh, okay. I was making sure that you knew who that was in the middle.
Dude, I met him once. We were all performing at a comedy festival, or not a comedy, at a rock festival in Columbus, but there was a comedy stage. So all of you guys were on a massive jumbo stage in the stadium, and then outside on a tiny stage was me and Andrew Dice Clay and Mark Norman. And I asked Tobias, I was getting a bunch of friends to film funny stuff for me. I had never met him before, and I said, I have an idea. I just thought with your full makeup on, it would be funny if we're just standing next to each other and you're laughing and you go, and then I'm standing next to you and I start giggling. And then you look at me and go, why are you laughing? And then I look at you and go, I don't know, man. I'm fucking scared. Yeah. And he goes, yeah, let's do it. He goes, I'll be dressed and ready to go at 7:30. Meet me outside my dressing room at 7:25. And he did it.
I love it.
3 seconds and we filmed it. But
Mr. Duplantier from Gojira, with the Morbid Angel shirt over there.
Gojira. We're so proud of them. They were so psyched too. I mean, we watched their set from stage. Like afterwards, he's like, I don't know, man, this is crazy.
Absolutely,
William.
Oh, there we go.
William.
I love William. Man, that band, I've actually they were so nice. I did a tour with Alice in Chains doing stand-up comedy as their opening act. These are 4 of the absolute goofiest people I've ever met in my life. Total goofballs.
It's crazy. Oh yeah.
Look at that. That is a great metal shot. That hair with Kerry King up there.
Were we about to say Lzzy was crazy?
The craziest thing about all of these metal guys, right? And this is just, again, my humble opinion, being the little sister in all of this. These are titans. These are rock gods, and they've done some things. But when you're all on a tour bus together and backstage, everybody becomes a 15-year-old boy, including myself. Yeah. And it's just, that's the way it is. And everybody's the biggest smush. It's like the scarier you look or the way it is, it's just that you're the bigger your heart.
Before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, because I had no idea that you were in recovery. That's what bonded me and Chris. Chris and I had known each other for years. And then Chris started tweeting about struggling with addiction and how I have 6 days sober, I have 8 days sober, I have 10. And I had been in recovery for, I think, 15 years at that point. And I reached out to him and I said, dude, don't do that. And we started talking about recovery. And that unintentionally has become a big part of our conversations that we've been doing in these podcasts. What got you to that spot where you realize I can't live like this anymore?
Well, for me, it was a slow road to sober. I've been in this band since I was 13 years old. I didn't really start drinking until I was 21. I was a very good kid. Mainly, I was afraid of the wrath of mom. Like we sat down, we watched a lot of Behind the Music when we were kids, and so it was like one of those where it's like, okay, just didn't really do the thing until I was in my 20s, and in my 20s it was fine, and then like in my late 30s, it got to the point where it was just, we were doing it a lot, and it was a lot more. And for me, it wasn't giving me the giddiness, the escape it once had. It was a way to shut things down. And so for me, that kind of scared me. And like, I try, so my goal was kind of to stop it in its tracks, whereas, I kind of saw where the path was going, whereas I remember a specific moment like where it wouldn't matter whether I had had a lot to drink or not. I could have like 2 glasses of wine, and all of a sudden I would get very disparaging on myself. I'd be like, "Oh man, I suck," and like, "Oh, this
Mm.
is too much," and people are looking at me in a way, and I don't know if I can be this, and so I was like, you know what, this isn't fun anymore. So when I turned 40, and I'm 41 now, I'm going to be 42 in October. I was like, you know what, let me try to not do this, and I had taken breaks before and that kind of thing and just kind of like tested it out, but always kind of came back and been like, I don't know. Every single time I came back to drinking, it wasn't giving me what apparently everybody else feels like
Mm,
it gives them.
Mhm.
It's like
mm,
it wasn't this thing, it was more inward. And it's been an element of freedom. I mean, there's one more thing I don't have to worry about. Death by alcohol is not going to be in my future.
Mhm.
mm.
The accidental things have said. I'm more creative now. I'm singing
Oh,
better than I
Oh.
ever have been. In
mm,
my 20, you also don't realize about the mechanics of, if even regardless of how much you waterboard yourself, every day to try to stay hydrated as a singer, drinking, every day or every other day, whatever it is on the road, will dehydrate you. And so that element has gone away as well and has made me a better singer. I'm more self-aware. I have a confidence in it because I don't know if this happened with you guys, but for me, being able to say that I am sober and that I don't need it is something that so many people don't make it out of. That's a hole so many people don't escape from.
absolutely.
And so it gives me this like, wow, I'm doing a hard thing. What's the next hard thing? That's
Mhm.
going to be a piece of cake, It's
That's
like
so funny.
like
I always say like the difference between life and death for so many of my friends. The first year that I got sober, 7 of my friends died, and they were all comedians. 4 drug overdoses, 3
wow.
drinking and driving car accidents, and I truly believe the difference between life and death when it comes to addictions is just getting over and admitting this is a problem. You know,
Yeah.
Yep.
And
and
and it's not for everybody. And in all honesty, like I actually feel bad for most of the functional alcoholics that I still know in my life because 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 by getting sober, I've been able to meet my truest self.
Mm,
I've been
Mhm.
able to meet her and be like, oh, I can be like the ultimate me now because there's nothing holding me back.
Yep.
And being able to see where that was going and look at myself and say to myself in the mirror, like, look, I don't even like myself when I'm drunk. I'm not smarter. I'm not more creative. I'm not funnier. I'm good as I am. And some of us aren't meant for these meager earthly pleasures. Some of us are meant for something greater. And so it's almost like, hey guys, you should try it out. It's
Yeah.
actually really awesome over here.
And absolutely, just looking at your face, like the light shining from your eyes, the light in that smile, how good your skin looks, how the spirit shining from
Thank you.
within. You don't have that dulling filter of alcohol weighing you down at all anymore. And I think it's evident in this picture that we're getting ready to pull up right now from your experience at Black Sabbath. I saw this picture and I was so, I mean, I am welling up with emotion, incredibly happy for you for all the things going on in your life. And just this picture right here, is it on for she can see this one right now too? Just look at that face. Look at that crowd
My
behind you.
gosh,
Lizzy,
right? It's
you're
like
doing it,
and
girl. You
and
are doing it.
everybody's there.
Oh,
Oh, thank you, my
not only
friend. That means a
there,
lot.
around the world, everyone watching
I
on that
know.
live stream.
There was like
Ah,
5 million people like streaming in yesterday. It was like we didn't thankfully nobody told me that until after our set. Like we were talking about before.
yeah.
wow, that's incredible. That's really, really incredible. Congratulations on being able to be a part of such an amazing gig, and it turns into a showcase for you. So many people are talking about your performance out there. And selfishly, I always like to ask people, who are your favorite comedians now? When you guys are on the bus, who are you? Who
His
are you?
name's Craig Gass, by
No,
the
no,
way.
no,
Craig
no.
Gass.
Oh, but
It has.
besides you,
I
besides you,
genuinely,
obviously.
genuinely like to know who people listen to, because sometimes it's fun to be able to go to my friends and go, guess what? Halestorm loves you. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so what are
Well,
you watching on the bus?
look, Well, look, I know, you know, there's some controversy that goes with this, but still, one of my favorite comedians is Louis C.K.
Yeah.
You know, I get
It's a legend.
you know, there was a thing and all this stuff and
There
whatever,
was a
you know,
thing. There
it
was a
happened,
thing. It came
you
out in a
know,
limo.
See, PR training 101 right there out of Lzzy Hale.
There was
That
a
great.
thing
Us
in a
being-
limo.
but in a lot of ways, it's like, you know, look, I've you know, I've always been a fan of his, and it was just so. To me, it's like, yeah, of course that happened, and genuinely, and that is you, and way to come through it, and way to
Yeah,
overcome
literally.
it. But still one of the funniest men out there. And my brother and I grew up on like the classics. So it's Steve Martin,
Yes.
you know, and Jerry Lewis and Danny Kaye. My goodness, we were talking about
Whoa. Danny Kaye
um,
was George Carlin's favorite.
Oh, okay. I don't even know that name.
George actually said he wanted to be he wanted to do Broadway because of Danny Kaye. That
Really?
is crazy, Lizzie. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, Lizzie. Keep going.
no, but Danny Kaye is one of those, you know, where it's like he just could put himself in any situation and be funny, but it was genuine. It
Yeah.
wasn't like he was putting something on. And you know, we talk about oh my gosh, what's the movie? With where he has to be a knight all of a sudden, and there's a scene. It's like where you know, he's trying not to get poisoned, and, and so it's like the vessel from the pestle has the brew that is true, and the chalice from the palace is you know, as it has the pellet with the poison. It's like this, like you know, all of the riffing, and it's just yeah, those guys were definitely. And then you can't mention anything without obviously the entire cast of Monty Python, the
Yeah.
Holy
Oh,
Grail. We grew up, you know, with all of that, and my goodness, you know, it's like there is a link to what we do and stand up comedy too. There
yeah.
is a um,
Absolutely.
there really is. You have to be so naked and vulnerable, yet you know, you know, it's yet grateful. There's just
Yeah.
so many different hats that you need to kind of be wearing in order to you know, get out there and do it. And so it just so much respect.
And to quote Monty Python, who said, "None shall pass." Lizzie, you have passed. Look at you. You have passed
They passed
all
the
the
audition.
challenges. You are here, and we are all so grateful and so lucky to see that smile, to have that voice, listen to that enthusiasm that you have. Man, good things happen to good people, and you, my dear, are proof.
And Lizzie, you
Oh,
joined
thank
us
you.
on, it was less than 24 hours notice. So,
Oh yeah,
thank you
and
for that.
not for nothing, we were talking about the days of drinking. It's 8 o'clock here in Las Vegas
Mhm.
when we got onto this call. We wouldn't have been doing this just few short years ago. So yeah, another one of the rewards, being able to come in here at 8 o'clock, and thank you so much. And very well dressed as well. I mean, Steven
thank you
Tyler
so
would
much,
be
Bill.
proud. Absolutely.
Yeah. Lizzie, you're a badass. Thanks for joining us.
Mhm.
That was so cool. And we'll see you next time. Where do we find Halestorm stuff? Tell people where to go.
Well, yeah, our site is hailstormrocks.com. Literally on all streaming platforms. You can Google us. We're highly Googleable.
I like that.
We're about to go out in a week with Volbeat, and then we're headlining the rest of the year. We're going back to Europe and the UK in the fall. We probably won't really see any significant time at home till Christmas, but we'll see you all out there.
When you see, Michael,
new album, August
Oh,
9th.
new album, August 8th.
August
Yeah.
8th.
and when you see Michael, tell him that "Demonic Possession" is my favorite song of the year off of their brand new record. I cannot
I
stop
will.
listening to that song. So good.
Thank you, Lizzie. We'll see you next time. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you so much. We'll see you. I'm coming out there to see you with Volbeat at some point as well. So
Oh,
be
yeah,
expecting my phone
man.
call to get on that list.
I got you, boy.
All
I
right.
got you.
Love you, Lizzie. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Lizzie.
Bye.
Love you too.
Oh, that was awesome. The crazy thing is you're describing exactly where we're going with these conversations, which is, you know how the machinery works. You know how that plane gets off the ground, and you've gotten used to it. And you do something every night that for the last few decades that so many people would freak out to be able to be in those shoes for a moment. And you've gotten so used to it. And every once in a while, a monstrous thing comes along, like this farewell show to Ozzy and Sabbath that you get to be a part of, that can make you feel like you're stepping on stage for the first time, right?
Dude, totally. And, you know, as I'm sitting here watching the rotate thing go from, who was it? Pantera to Metallica, right?
Yeah, they have a rotating stage that when
the rotating stage, which was brilliant. It was the only way to do it. And Jake Berry was the production guy, and he's
no
the best.
way.
He's the top of he's one of the old guard, you know.
Yeah, Jake Berry was the old Metallica production manager for decades.
Metallica, U2, the Stones. I mean, he's worked with the biggest of the big, right? So, you know, but I watch it and I just go, you know what? It's like high school. It's just battle of the bands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all it is. There's a bunch of cable. There's a bunch of people. There, you know, and you know the funny thing, and unlike, you know, for the Sabbath event, it wasn't a battle. It was everybody coming together. It was like a united front. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, and you know, even when we did the Big Four, you know, I got to have the same experience, the same feeling, like our whole tribe, our whole community coming together to celebrate. You know, it wasn't competitive anymore. You know, because let's face it, man, and you know, Chris, it's like coming up the ranks. It's a competitive thing. It's a climb to the top. And I think what we saw at the Sabbath show is we've all been to the top. We've all seen the view. You know, and what I think is cool about that is that, you know, once you've done that, you don't have to now you look over your brother and go, fuck yeah, you made it up too. Awesome, man. You know, and now you can enjoy the view together rather than, you know, sort of scratching and clawing to get up there. And you know, that for sure, that's what this last weekend was with, you know, with the Ozzy Sabbath show, was just you know, the joy of all of us being together to celebrate. You know, as you get to the top, because there's always another crest. You know, it's like I live in Arizona, you know, right? So there's these beautiful mountains I live by, and they look huge. But I've hiked up part of them, and every time you get up there, you go, "Oh my God, there's like 6 more mountains up here I never saw down on the ground." Right? So you realize there's no end to this, right? It's just no end. And I remember, you know, when we were doing the Big Four at wasn't Reading, what was the other one? Nebworth. And I was talking to Kirk Hammett, and he goes, you know, we're doing well here. He goes, you know, I was talking to you too, and you know, like Glastonbury didn't sell out, and you know, and you realize even at that level, there's still, you know, it's you know, there's, you know, whether you're playing to a 500 seat club, you know, a 50,000 or above, you know, you're always kind of checking, well, how's the competition doing? How the Stones?
Of course.
Doing? You know, I guess even at that level, they're, you know, you're checking in with your competitors, you know, and the other guys.
When you get the call, do you remember when you got the call and what was the call about? Had the show been announced yet?
No, it hadn't. So KK Downing messaged me, and you know, he and I had become dear friends over the years, and we were friends back when we toured together. You know, back Painkiller and Rust in Peace for us, 1990, 91. That's where I became friends with him, and you know, he was just, dude, that cover of Unleashed in the East with the flying V up in the air. I mean, come on, that
metal.
So, you know, so KK and I had been connected to continue your question, and so he messaged me early January, and he asked, you know, if I was interested. He said they're doing his thing, and
they're doing a thing.
Yeah, if you're, would you be interested?
So you have the info before it's announced to the public, right?
Oh yeah, no. So he hit me and he goes, David, we just need some really great heavy metal bass players. You'd be great. And I said, I'm in. Fuck yeah, done. I don't even know what it is. Just consider me in. No. You know, that's how I roll. I'm like, leave God's the net. You know, fuck it. I don't even know what's down there. I'm in. You know.
But as you start to hear about the lineup, at this point in your life, is there anyone left that you hear about that's going to be on the lineup that you're like, oh man, I finally get to meet that guy? Or had you already met everyone that was a part of this?
I think I had met everybody that was there. I mean, I didn't know this guy Youngblood, who, man, standing side stage watching him, I just thought Freddie Mercury, Live Aid, Wembley. I mean, I was
the
like,
powerful moment.
God, That was huge.
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't seen the Rival Sons before.
Okay.
I went down to go see Guns N' Roses a couple weeks back, and they were on the bill, and I didn't get in the venue in time to see them, but I knew they were a thing, and then so they were great. I thought that was cool. Yeah, I mean, I think look, Ron Wood was not.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And then to see him, so I mean, I had to go and go, dude, can I please have a picture with you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I gotta get it. And he's super cool, and he's kind of that. He seems like that guy with the Stones who sort of steps out and kind of hangs. And I saw him and Slash hanging as you would expect. Those two guys.
Yeah. So when you start to, I'm sorry, when you start to find out what it's going to be, the initial reaction is like, I don't even know what this is. I'm in, whatever it is. And then when you start to hear, this is what it's going to be. It's his final show. It's the farewell to the godfathers of this genre of music. Do you remember a defining moment of going, holy shit, this is going to be massive?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, when KK Downing hits you, the answer is always yes, right? Even if it's, can you take my garbage out? Sure.
Yeah. It's a yes, sir, with that one. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, there's just, when your heroes call, even if they're your buddies, it's just, fuck yeah, I'm in, and KK's quality work, so, it's good. But yeah, then he introduced me to Tom Morello, and we got in the loop right away. And I had not met Tom before. I guess there's one, the first kind of gatekeeper, the musical director. I had not met him, of course. Super familiar with all of his work and everything.
How about that task? Trying to wrangle all those artists. Yeah. Tom Morello putting those people together on those different songs.
Is Supergroup A, and we rehearsed first on Wednesday last week. And Tom, he didn't even get a chance to pick up a guitar. He just basically wrangled cats all day. And tried to get together. And there was a few things, like I asked him. I said, hey, because he was listed as a performer on a couple of my songs, and then I got an updated one that he wasn't on there, but he was going to be performing in Supergroup B. And I was like, I don't blame him. I mean, my God, brain power do you have, So that was fine. But Mike Borden and started texting, and we got on the phone and had a call and just kind of go over some endings, because there's, you can imagine with Sweet Leaf, there's 80,000 endings that Sabbath has ever
right.
That song. And Mike Borden was in Ozzy, so I'm thinking, well, how did you end it? And it didn't seem like they had an ending, And same with Ultimate Sin and Shot in the Dark. So that was kind of more what we were kind of rolling over with some of that stuff. What are these? Are we going to end? How do we end the song? But for the most part, Frank Bello and I had been chatting for a few days in advance as well. And here's the funny thing: none of us got any information. I mean, this was. And obviously, they were keeping a tight lid on this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
oh yeah,
they announced it, and in fact, I went to NAMM and I didn't even get the email to sort of confirm my announcement on the poster. And it didn't push through to my phone, and it was on me sitting in Arizona on my laptop. I'm like, so I get home, I'm like, that's weird. I didn't get an email yet. And then I saw the poster go out, and I went, oh shit, the email's sitting right here. So I was like, I hit Andy copy. Like, dude, I can't believe I didn't see this. What is the chance the Apple fucking iCloud gods decide that's the email you're not going to get?
Yeah, dude, exactly.
When you're in that rehearsal with everybody, are there moments where is there a learning curve that happens that you go, wow, this is kind of crazy. We're a bunch of professional musicians and we're still trying to figure out one part of this song?
Yeah.
Or fortunately, I've had a lot of experience with this, and Metal Allegiance more recently, right?
True.
So I deal with this every year at NAMM, of course, when we do our big events. So I've been doing this for a lot of years. And then even before that, I had a group called Hale, which was me, Andreas Kisser, Jimmy DeGrasso, and Tim Ripper Owens.
Oh, yeah.
We went down to South America after a NAMM show, sight unseen. And I played with Jimmy. I've jammed with Ripper. But I'd never, I didn't even know Andreas really, So we went down sight unseen to a bar in Santiago, Chile to rehearse for 2 days and do this thing we called Hale. And, of course, you just trust everyone's a pro. We've all had some experience jamming.
Yeah. And like you said, there's also former members of Ozzy's band there. So
Yeah. So, I've kind of walked into these sort of, unannounced. I did the rock and roll fantasy camp. I did a ton of those. In fact, in 2009, I think it was, I did the tour, right? So we were the opener for the Extreme King's X tour. And it was basically a House of Blues tour. And that was like me, Kip Winger, Elliot Easton, Mark Hudson,
Whoa.
Glenn Hughes, a bunch of us, right? And every day we would meet our campers who had signed up. We'd put a band together and be on stage playing at the House of Blues. And these are, mostly amateur, maybe weekend warrior kind of musicians. So
Yeah, there's been a lot of our friends who've done those camps, and they become really popular. And
I'm doing one with Alice Cooper and Rob Halford, actually.
Oh, in Phoenix.
Nice.
That's right. So
in fact, it sold out and they added a second week. So it was like, oh my gosh. So, easy for me. I just drive down the street and do it. But I'd say those things are a lot of work, man, because, it's not like this Sabbath thing. We're all walking in. Everyone's an A-level player. We know the drill. When you do fantasy camp, these could just be, very novice musicians who just kind of want to have the experience, So
bunch of Chris Cales out there. A bunch of Chris Cales.
Yeah, I haven't played drums, but I played guitar, I played bass, I've sang, I've shaken the tambourine. I mean, whatever.
What a great band to have Dave Ellefson on tambourine in your fantasy band.
I see Dave Ellefson as a cowbell guy. There you go. We nailed it at the same time. That's that bass timing right there.
Well, listen, we have a limited amount of time left here with you. And I just want to know, when you land in Birmingham, I have to believe that you feel it in the airport, that you feel it in the city. It must have been in the air in the city of Birmingham, was it not? Did you feel it everywhere you went?
It was great. So I was just there last year for Bloodstock. I went to the same kind of airport and everything when I filled in for Paulo from Sepultura. I with his band called Trace. So it's so funny. I'm like, God, almost a year to the date, I'm back here in this area. But this one was different because these are the hometown heroes. This is it, right? And went into the city center. I was hanging. Whitfield Crane was my my tourist buddy. And I love Whit. I see Whit in the strangest places because he just has his backpack. And in fact, people were texting me going, "Hey, what was that thing with Whit going over and picking up his backpack on stage?" I said, "Dude, that's everything he owns is in that backpack."
Yeah,
this guy.
That guy
is just
he is a nomad. Look, a lot of us musicians and comedians, we're all always on the road, and people that know us will go, "Man, you're never home." And I always think of Whitfield, and I go, there's people who are even way more extreme than I am, because Whitfield is literally, I'm going to live in Hawaii for a couple months. Now I'm going to go to Mexico. Now I'm in Guatemala. Now I'm in England. He is
very Ivan Moody of him too.
In the most random places around the world. And here's one. So I see him. He's like, "Man, let's take the train. Let's go. I know how to get into the city." And it was a short ride. We go in. And as soon as you walk out, I see some people from Metallica there immediately. So some of their crew, internal people. I'm like, so everywhere's a friendly face. You walk out, there's the murals with the guy still painting. The band had just signed him a couple of days earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You go up the hill, there's the art museum, and they've got all the album cover display out there. And then I went back in the city the next day, and I went up into the museum, the Ozzy Museum. Super cool, man. And there's a lot of fans there. So I did my share of autographs as well, because these people are all, they're excited for everyone who's there, So it was, went over to Selfridges. They had all the kind of unique merch. So I bought some swag.
Oh, that's cool.
So I just came home with a ton of swag and stuff I just wanted to get for everybody, So
Black Sabbath brings everybody together for that big festival. And just to have Jake E. Lee back, shot here in Las Vegas in a robbery a little while ago, has the history that he had with Sharon and Ozzy, and back. And you got to be there with him, playing those wonderful songs with him.
Again, and that's a great point, Chris. I thought the same thing. I thought, man, it's pretty public what he went through, and look, I was in a band like that too.
Tell us more about that, Dave. Let's hear more about that, man.
In Holy Wars, you know what I mean? And I think I think, look, I learned that from Vinny Appice. He said something about that when they were doing Heaven and Hell, and he said, "How, it's like you're back here." And he goes, "I didn't fight my way out the door. When it was over, it was time to move on."
Mhm.
And then when it was back on, they gave me a call, and I was back in the room. And I was so happy for Jake to get that moment.
Oh,
And we were travel buddies actually on that, because we ended up flying up from Frankfurt up to Birmingham together on that flight. So we hung. We were at the hotel together. Most of us were kind of at one hotel, and so we hung out a lot. And we kind of eyed each other on stage, kind of keeping an eye, like because to be back, I felt great for him that he was back on the big stage
oh
again.
yeah.
He was back at playing those songs, which we as fans just identify. I mean, you pull up the
Absolutely.
videos, is. And I saw Jake in my high school senior year, 6 months before I moved to Hollywood and started, our
Get out of
Megadeth.
here.
And I saw him, yeah, and he had just joined. It was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I saw him play with Ozzy. He had just joined the band. And I thought, this guy is such a fucking rock star, man. And he had his attitude and everything. So, to be on stage with him, and these journeys of rock and roll, are not always so good on our mental physique. They're not sometimes so great on our soul. And, getting in the rocket and shooting to the moon, well, it's a lot of fun going up. Sometimes it ain't so fun coming down, and most of us, if we've been in this game for a minute or two, it ain't all up. There's some ups and downs.
Yeah. And this moment in particular, the finality of all of it, did you feel it that night? Did you get emotional that night? Were there moments where you went, holy cow, we really felt the weight of it?
Dude, I think when Ozzy sang "Mama, I'm Coming Home," that was there wasn't a dry eye in that stadium. I mean, I get goosebumps now just think. Now, here's the funny thing: Wit, of all things, I go. I'm side stage for most of it, right? The whole thing, right? And then I go, if I want to go see Ozzy, and because in front of stage, because I saw his sound check on Friday, right? So I kind of got to see it from the wings. I thought, it's time to go front of house and be a fan and just take this in. So sure enough, I'm down there. Tobias is there, Rob Cacciano, all kinds of people are there down in the pit, and you realize, our rocker buddies, like all of us, were fans.
Yeah.
Alyssa White, Goose was there. She's out front of house. And like a whole bunch of people. So, of course, I see Whitfield Crane out of nowhere. This crowd of 50,000 people, I see Whit. Hey, dude, come here. So he pulls me over to this little area by a kind of a private barricade area, and next thing I'm standing next to Robert Trujillo and his family. So we're getting ready to watch Ozzy. And I tell him about "Mom, I'm Coming Home." Now, Whit tells me, he goes, that song is about England? It's like, really? Because Lemmy wrote those lyrics.
I was going to say, Whitfield's was really close with Lemmy, and he's really close with Ozzy. But yeah, he's actually got some crazy.
And then I thought about it. I go, times have changed, times are strange, da 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 da. Right, and especially the line, "You could have been a better friend to me." I always thought that was a weird line. If you're talking about,
right.
So all of a sudden, I think about these artists, Ozzy, Lemmy. They leave LA, or they move from England to LA.
Yeah.
And at some point, maybe this thought, well, I'm coming back home, and for Oz, I think the Osbournes maybe live full time now back in England again. I don't know, but it's so you just think about that, like that is a global connection.
Wow, that is heavy.
Mama, I'm coming home to Minnesota.
She definitely could have been a better friend.
Yeah.
yeah. But, Minnesota was a good friend to me. But I just think I think what a great, and Chris, as a lyricist, as a songwriter, you don't write things always so literal. This isn't about my mom coming home to my mom. This is a bigger, maybe idea. It's more of a thought. And I was thinking, fuck, that's brilliant. What a great thing to write a song about, and then for Ozzy to sing it, it was just, and I think the thing that hit me with Ozzy is he said, as you probably saw on the stream as well, he said that thing, this illness has sidelined me for 6 years, and I'm just so happy to be back on stage, and it was just like, God, can you imagine, Chris, 6 years just going, maybe this is it. I'll never be back on stage. And then finally you are.
One time. And
one time.
you get
I
that.
saw him after the show back in the VIP thing. It was right. Actually, it was, he saw me and he waved me over. So we just chatted. And I said, dude, that was so good. And he was beaming, man. He was so happy. And then they kind of wheeled him out and they took him out. And you're almost like, dude, he wants to hang. This is the after show party. Next thing, Lars there. Everybody's hanging out. Everybody's in the room. It's like, man, he should have kept Ozzy here, because you could tell he just wanted to hang out. And at the end of the day, Ozzy's just a fan and a friend and a musician. All the rest of us, he just wants to be in the room, hanging out be a member amongst members.
And there was one moment where I saw like Ozzy's feistiness come out again. The mic was just out of his reach, and he's like, grabbed it from the side and pulled it back in. Yeah. And I was like, yes, Ozzy, yes, he's there.
I wonder
it's like you could tell he really wanted to just stand up and fucking own it again. And, and your heart goes out for someone. We all know people that have had some physical, disability like that. And so you feel for him, but you're right. Inside you can see, dude, he's still got the fucking rock and roll fight in him, and he always will. That's how people like us are wired.
Do you still have moments where you think about how your recovery has gotten you here? Because that's the thing that, like, the three of us have bonded a lot over the years over recovery. And in moments like that, do you still stay self-conscious about, like, wow, if I was still using, if I was still partying, maybe I wouldn't even be alive today. And here I am, healthy, I'm alive, and I'm getting to be a part of something that's massive.
Dude, 100%. And let me tell you, it's funny you say that, because today I was thinking about it. There were no fuck-ups, drug addicts, and those people in that room at all, right? I mean, all of us, there's some of us who have had public stories, Steven Tyler, myself, the Pantera guys, we've been down a road or two, and, you're not on that stage unless you've cleaned up your act, period. And there's no way you were going to be on that particular stage if you were still a mess, period. I mean, there were no junkies, drunks, oh my God, can we get him out of the dressing room? Just give him some cocaine to get on stage. There was none of that going on, and I've only known Ozzy when we did the when we did the Sabbath tour. It essentially was a sober tour. I mean, it's me and that was my friendship with him. And so, there's a connection. Even Steven Tyler, I mean,
true.
He called me. He was probably 4 years sober. I was no days sober, and he called me to give a sober talk, back in 1989, and to see the journey that's, I was thinking about it today on that stage, almost every band, maybe not the new guys, but, those of us who've been in this for a minute. I mean, probably every band there had at least one sober guy in it, and that's their journey, and that's why we remain anonymous if we want to. But, as it was told to me, it's like, well, David, they all knew you were a junkie, so they may as well let them know you're sober. You know what I mean? So
that's hilarious.
But it's look, I remember playing Donington in '88. We're Megadeth supposed to come over here and do a handful of Monsters of Rock shows. We did Donington. My girlfriend found my drugs and calls the manager and my parents, David's on drugs, and it was like, all right, you can go do Donington, but then you got to come home and go to rehab. And I was so pissed.
Whoa.
Fuck that.
That's niche.
I'm not canceling shows with Iron Maiden for that, and I ended up doing it. And, the agent covered for me, and then I since made my amends to him, and we've been great friends ever since, but he, I needed to, and at some point it had to stick somewhere where it hurt, I had, price has to be paid at some point, and that was
for
it.
Sure. Yeah.
And unfortunately I went home, I went to rehab, and I never got back in the studio or back on a stage again until 1990 when I got clean. And, to me, that's the amends, to the fans, and to the industry.
And that saved your life.
It did. It ultimately saved my life. As much as I didn't want to pay that price, canceling shows with Iron Maiden, it's like, hey, could have canceled my life if I didn't get clean.
And how crazy life changes too, because like you went through your journey, I've gone through mine. We were on tour in Europe, Five Finger Death Punch and Megadeth on my 2 year anniversary of sobriety. I got my 2-year chip from Mr.
Yeah.
Dave Ellefson.
Really?
I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a
man.
huge moment for me. I was like, what? I was sitting back
Well,
watching
and it was
Headbangers
great.
Ball, listening to all the Megadeth songs, Peace Sells. That dude just gave me my 2-year chip. What the hell?
You know what? We're talking about a lot of healthy stuff, and I want to ask an unhealthy question. I wonder how much analysis was going on amongst people who were performing about what Sharon was saying about, I'm going to announce who I had to throw off the bill. Were people guessing? Was that a source of dialogue?
Not really. I think everybody was so glad to be there. I think everybody that was there, they were glad they certainly weren't thrown
Yeah,
off.
they were glad that they weren't. Just don't pay
Yeah.
attention to me. Just
Yeah.
don't look at me,
Yeah.
Sharon.
They avoided
Yeah.
Sharon's axe.
Yeah.
Boom. Everybody's like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa.
But you know what? I think the spirit of the thing was so cool.
Mhm.
You know, it was, you know, like Whit Crane said, he goes, you know, this is heavy metal summer camp, you know,
Yeah.
which it is, for not just for us, but the whole, like I said, the whole town. There's fans everywhere.
world.
The guy making
Absolutely.
girls, there's stores selling the merch. I mean, the whole spirit of the whole thing was great. But you know, while you know, Sharon is, you know, has been so kind and so good to me, and you know, just the Osbourne family. It's like we're all just hanging out in their living room,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
because the stage is just another room in their house when you think about
Yeah.
it. I mean, that family, you know, has grown. I mean, Sharon, you know, her dad managed Black Sabbath and had Jet Records, and you know, and just so, you know, she's been in it and around it her whole life and grew up in it, and you know, their family are, you know, it was, I mean, to be in that VIP party, you know, chatting with Ozzy for a second. Next thing you know, they're like, all right, everybody stand back, stand back. And I was like, okay. And I knew everybody wanted a minute with Ozzy. So
Of
it's
course.
more just to, well, but all of a sudden, Sid comes to, you know, Jack is there, you know, whistling, hey, everybody be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Next thing you know,
Oh, yeah.
fucking Sid's there, you know, standing there and going, you know, Kelly, I love you, and you know, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and you know, gets on his knee and proposes and puts a ring on her finger. Like, what in what world does this happen? We're
Yeah.
like, we just played a rock concert. Next thing you know, it's like the Osbournes are right here in front, literally 3 feet from us. And next thing you know, it's like we're in the living room, and while the daughter's getting proposed, putting a ring on it to get married, you're like, unbelievable. You know what I
And
mean? Like,
there's a funny moment too. I saw the video, and when he starts to say, you know, I've loved you from the moment I met you, Ozzy chimes in and goes,
yeah.
oh, you're not marrying my fucking daughter.
Very
I
Ozzy
know.
of him.
Yeah,
Great, great
That
line.
was funny. It was great, and it was so hard. And you could see Ozzy was in such a great mood. That was right after the show,
Mhm.
so he was in such a great mood. He's got that after show buzz, you know, that we get. That, you know, we
Oh,
all know
yeah.
as performers. Right?
Yeah.
You know, you're still riding the high, you know, and it's
Yeah. Speaking of which,
and
riding that high after a show like that, how long did it take you to fall asleep after a show like that?
dude, I finally napped today, and today's Monday, right? So,
Wow.
I mean, I think I didn't go to bed till 3 a.m. because, you know, that whole after party thing kept rocking till, I mean, I finally bailed at midnight and got back to the hotel. And then I just kind of, I was like, I got so much Black Sabbath Ozzy merch in my room. I don't know how the hell I'm going to get it out of here.
Oh, that's
you know? So just
hilarious.
swag I bought, shit that I was given, you know? So, you know, finally at 3 a.m. I fell asleep. I woke up at 9 a.m. for breakfast, and I saw Tom Morello down there and some people, you know, everybody's just kind of wandering the hallways. And because by the time I got back to the hotel, I saw a bunch of people had moved the party from the venue over to the Hilton, to the hotel,
Oh,
you
that's
know, and it was
hilarious.
just like, oh, it was just all, you know, it was like a Saturday night in Hollywood at the Rainbow and the
Yeah.
Whiskey.
Yeah.
It's just full on, you know?
It's the NAMM convention, but the Birmingham edition.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, exactly. It's exactly what it was. Let's move the party to the Hilton. You know what I mean? So, yeah,
Well-
no, it was just kind of going all night, and even yesterday at the airport in Birmingham, fans everywhere. You know, so it was just kind of, you know, meet and greets, and it was just so, you know, people were just so kind and so gracious, and you know, there was no air of like, well, this guy's got to have his dressing room here, and this guy. I mean, you walk down one hallway, and it was like, well, there's Metallica here, Guns N' Roses are next door, Anthrax is upstairs. I mean, it was just kind of you could go anywhere. It was just kind of a really, if you had a badge to be back there, you kind of got to just go hang out, and everybody was just a member amongst members, man.
Wow.
It was no like, you can't go down there and your pass doesn't work here, and technically after we played, you're supposed to kind of move off the stage, but you could see every one of us was hanging out.
Of course, because you want to be a witness.
A fucking guitar boat so we could stay and watch fucking band or something, But
well, dude, I really appreciate you spending time with us to let us know what it was like. It just seemed like such an unbelievable, unique experience. And one last question I wanted to ask you. I have to believe it passed through your mind watching how time affected these famously unhealthy relationships between everybody in the band and the organization. And did you have thoughts about maybe one day I can reunite with Mustaine again and we can have a healthy, at least send-off of some kind?
For sure. I mean, look, I proposed that back in 2004 when Dave was coming out of his, hand injury. Again, they put out this, retirement hand injury, and next 2 years later, he's back playing guitar. I'm like, all right, look, if we're going to do this, why don't we fucking call everybody and put it back together? Like I saw Asia and Yes do that. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
Steve Howe and Trevor Rabin, you know what I mean? And look, I it's in my nature to do that. So again, that's what I do with Kings of Thrash. I invite everybody out. Hey, come on, let's fucking jam,
Yep.
Sean Drover sent me a really nice text. He said, brother, I hope this doesn't fall short on you at all. Just the gravity of this. He goes, you were there representing every single one of us from Megadeth, And I said, I said, thank you for that. And I said, I know, I know I was, and, even, he may not be performing in the band right now, but it's like, look, that legacy is, I wear it out here on my sleeve, and because it's my legacy too, and it's interesting when there are personal conflicts, you sort of, got to maneuver around them, but the legacy is the legacy, and it's those songs will outlive us and that will be there forever. And to be a part of that, it's a huge thing, And look, Metallica did it, right? When we did the Big Four, they did their big fan club thing up in San Francisco. They invited Dave up, invited King Diamond. I mean, they kind of already did one of these in a certain way around the Big Four. So, and I always say, look, we're all just a branch off the Metallica family tree, So, I think for us, I kind of got a little part of that already, but just through the Metallica good graces, So, to be invited into this with Ozzy, you see it, and you're right. Some of those battles those guys have had, they're of legend,
Oh yeah.
And to see it all, Jakey Lee standing there, and you're right, and that's why I feel like I still need to be a good steward of the Megadeth legacy because, as a founder of it, as all that stuff, it's like, it's not something you should ever, talk down about or any of that stuff. It's despite of any personal issues about it, it belongs to all of us. It really does.
Well, I really do appreciate you sharing these thoughts with us. And it's kind of weird because we're all friends. We all hang out on a semi-regular basis. So it's kind of weird to put you in this kind of a situation. And now we're putting you on camera to interview you and get your thoughts. But thank you for making time. And on a personal note, thank you for the times that, and we both have this with you, that you've been there for us. You've helped countless people who have struggled with addictions and have shed light to help people. And you've made yourself available, which has always blown my mind. I've seen you in situations where people are clearly talking to you because they know who you are. And you're like, yeah, man, take my phone number. Like, because if you need help, I'll help you. And it's like, man, that is crazy. So on a personal note, thank you for always being nice and kind.
An ambassador of goodwill in all walks of life across the board.
Yeah, you are. Dave Ellefson. And Dave, where do we find you online? Websites, social media?
Look, davidellefson.com is the center, but I guess Facebook, it's /David Ellefson. It's Instagram is David Ellefson Base.
Right on. Thank you, David. And
Thanks, you guys.
great to see you. And we'll see you soon.
Rock on. Yep.
All right.
Cool, guys. See ya.
Continue to enjoy Europe, my friend. Later.
Thanks, buddy.